but you need to think about the customer, think about everyone else in the trade. I mean, attention to detail, right? I mean, I was I was in the Marine Corps for almost 12 years, and I feel like attention to detail was driven into us every day. But it's true. But I'm glad I found this industry, man, because people laugh. And before I left the Marine Corps, I worked on um, helicopters, well, really tilt rotor aircraft, the V-22. I was a mechanic, and people were like, "Oh, that sounds so much more exciting than HVAC." And I'm like, "Well, I actually like the HVAC industry a little bit better."
Yeah, you get technicians. I've been doing it this way for 20, 30 years, and it's like, well, things have changed, right? And they're trying to
Yeah,
pass down misinformation from
yep. It's
20,
a
30
dangerous
years ago.
statement. When people say this is how we've always done it, that's a dangerous statement, right? We used to say in
Yep.
aviation, that's what crashes airplanes.
Hola, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Reliable Trades podcast. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and you like this video. And if you're listening to this on the audio over on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other platform, please leave a review. That's all free and it helps support the show and helps it get out to more people. And of course, I'm your host, Adrian Garcia. I am an HVAC technician, licensed contractor here in Texas, and I've been doing this about 18 years. And we just have a lot of good conversations with good people in different trades now, whether it's HVAC, plumbing, electrical. I've had some others in like auto mechanics, anything like that. You bring them on, have a good conversation, and hopefully get more trade awareness out there. So I appreciate everybody who's watched or listened, all the support and making this podcast successful and what it is now. I also want to thank the sponsors of the show, like Jobber, which is a CRM that we use to run our business, which is invoicing, quoting, scheduling jobs, maintenance contracts, and all our technicians on our team usually pick it up relatively quickly. I just have to show them what it is and they are able to get out there and start, invoicing. It's been great running our business with Jobber now. And if you guys want a free trial and discount, make sure to check the link down below, getjobber.com/reliable HVACR. I also want to thank Vito Pro Pack, the best quality bags that money can buy, literally. If you invest in these bags, as I did, during the whole pandemic, I ripped so many backpacks and tool pouches that I finally, I found Vito. I think there were some YouTube videos, tried them out. I did the buy one, get one, that's going on right now. If you guys ever want to buy or try Vito Pro Pack, spring promotion is the best time of year by far. So check out Vito Pro Pack at your supply house or go to vitopropack.com to learn more. And the podcast is also brought to you by Local. Local HQ is a marketing that is geared towards the trades, and they can help you with your HVAC digital marketing so that you can dominate your local service areas with proven strategies that get your business more leads. They can help you rank higher on Google and all that you would need. So reach out to them at localhq.com/reliable and mention me or the Reliable Trades podcast and get 2 months of SEO for free. John, how are you?
Hey, Adrian. Yeah, nice to meet you. I'm doing well. So,
Yeah. So
Mhm.
you're from Danfoss. I kind of want to get into maybe what you do there and introduce yourself a little bit.
Mhm. Okay, yeah. So, my name's John Borkowski. I'm an application engineer at Danfoss. Specifically, I work for Danfoss North American OEM sales. Um, my job, I work with part of the sales team, and we support large OEM original equipment manufacturers in the HVAC industry. So my job is really going out and supporting selling components, supporting the implementation of components into their designs. You can almost think of it as a consulting job within the scope of our products and applications. So I deal with mostly rooftop customers right now. Um,
Okay.
I've got some background in chillers. So, yeah.
Yeah, I do like the
Mhm,
light commercial
mhm,
refrigeration. So I see your stuff
mhm.
a lot in like these
Okay.
components
Yeah.
as far as like valves and we had Danfoss at our supply house. So it's like the
Mhm,
dryers, the valves, all that kind of stuff. I work on a lot of ice machines.
Okay.
walk-in
All right.
boxes
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So I'm very familiar with, running, installing some Danfoss
Mhm.
components, as far as like harvest valves and different things like that. So
Yep.
seen you guys around for quite a while. So I see it on the light commercial side.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So that's our product line, our valves, filter dryers. That's very common across the industry. Um, that's cool that you see that stuff. We've got compressors as well, and that's a big part of what I
Oh,
do
that's
is
right.
scroll compressors. Yeah. So and heat exchangers, whether it be brazed plate, we have brazed plate heat exchangers and micro channel, air side exchangers as well. So,
Yeah,
but
we've
we do
seen a
have an
lot of.
extensive product offering. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I forgot about how much you guys do because I put in some
Mhm.
Danfoss compressors,
Mhm.
scroll compressors in some RTUs and stuff like that. And we
Nice.
typically see your small for like small refrigerators and stuff like that. We deal with a lot of small compressors.
Mhm.
So I do a lot of under counter freezers,
Mhm.
things like
Okay.
that where we see that. So
Nice.
Danfoss is everywhere when I walk into a customer's place.
Yeah, we try. We try. I know we've got our competition, but we definitely we try to get out there. So
So that we can get into the whole A2L discussion in this episode, and there's a lot that goes into it because it's a big transition, and it's been not an easy transition, I will say, from a technician viewpoint. Now, Danfoss, you guys deal with more like the components. You guys are not in the refrigerant side of things because I've talked to other guys. There's whole issues with the refrigerant side of things that
yeah.
is, there's nothing you can do about it. But you guys are in the component industry, like a lot of components, a lot of things for equipment out there. Um,
That's right. Yeah, components. We don't manufacture our own refrigerant. That's correct.
so you're not to blame for any of this. Yes.
If you want to look at it that way, yeah, yeah. We're feeling the same pain as you are, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
we're part of that.
So this whole shift into A2L, are you guys? How are you guys preparing for that?
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
everything is going to go to sensors and these different valves and different basically, which is kind of weird because we are dealing with two at the moment, which is 454B
Mhm. Yep.
and R32, and they are not the same, like really, right? Because
No.
there's differences in the refrigerants themselves. So how do you
Yeah.
deal with making components for those things?
Okay, so that's a great question, and I'm gonna I'll attack it this way. So first off, you're right. R32 is a lot different. R32 is a pure refrigerant. It's an HFC. R454B is an HFO HFC mix. So it is different. It has different capacity, different properties, and they end up getting different capacity out of this refrigerant. You also end up with different discharge temperatures, where like
Oh yeah.
R32 yeah, has a lot higher. You end up with higher discharge temperatures out of your compressor. Um, so it poses a lot of challenges, right? And from Danfoss, from what I've seen, so full disclosure, I've been with Danfoss for almost a year now. I used to work at a OEM before that, and so I've dealt with it from both sides. So when I was developing the chillers with the OEM, we were in the middle of that refrigerant transition, right? So it was like 2020, and we were changing over our legacy products to A2L, and so I was in the trenches, if you will, with the refrigerant change and design change. And now that I'm with Danfoss, I'm seeing what other manufacturers were doing also. So it really comes down to what refrigerant did you choose,
Yeah.
right? So did you choose R32 or did you choose R454B? There are different OEMs did different things, and before we North America made that change, it was happening in Europe, right? So if
Hmm.
you look, I mean, you can Google it. It's quick searches. You can see the OEMs that were really what they were doing and why they were doing it. And they wrote some white papers. Hey, we're doing this because we think this is the way to go.
Yeah.
And now we're left with different manufacturers with different refrigerants, and companies like Danfoss and our competitors had to say, okay, well, we have to supply for both, right?
Yeah,
And
that's a difficulty
yeah,
that I see because
yeah,
I'm thinking of it as a technician, like, oh man, I got to work on both. I got to carry,
Yeah.
these refrigerants.
Mhm.
And then you think about, because I had talked
Mhm.
in an email with, oh no, I had talked to another educator,
Mhm.
and he brought up Danfoss specifically because of some things that you guys are doing that are benefiting, us in the
Mhm.
field. But I didn't think about it from a manufacturer standpoint, like somebody that has to do the parts for these. Like, you got to deal with both, right? So
Yeah.
how do you tackle that?
Yeah. So it's complexity, right? So we added complexity to our product lines. One major thing that we made a decision to do that I'm not sure others have, and I think it's helped a lot. It's helped many people, including, from us down to technicians in the field to the owners of the units. We have a multi refrigerant compressor. So
Oh,
our medium, yeah. So
I
our
I
medium
heard
and
I
large
heard
scrolls, yeah.
I heard about multi refrigerant, but like for components, I didn't even know it was compressors.
Yeah, so R454B and R410A are very similar.
Okay.
And even performance wise, capacity wise, they're not a whole lot different. So we were able to qualify our R410A, some of our R410A scroll compressors with 454B, with no hit in capacity or anything to the
Yes,
customer. You're still getting, you're still getting the benefits of the A2L.
and I kind of wanted to cover that because I did
Yeah.
talk, like I said, I did
Mhm.
hear about this
Mhm.
kind of stuff recently. So
Mhm.
454, like you said, and 410A are close enough. They're close, right?
Yeah, they're
Um,
they're they're both mixes, right? They're both like a HFC mix. So
but R32 is vastly
mhm,
different because
mhm,
people are
yeah,
trying to, do different things in the field to try and get
mhm,
customers, cooling. And I need what what I wanted to make sure people knew, because people are finding out
mhm,
by trial and error trying to mm, use different refrigerants, and that's on them, whatever they decide to do in the field. But I want them
mhm,
I kind of want them to know that R32 and
mhm,
454B are not similar,
yeah.
whatsoever. You cannot replace one with the other. Um,
That's a great
yeah,
point. That's a
because
great
that's
point,
a
Adrian. Yeah.
misconception. I also want to thank Diversitech. They simplify your work. They have everything a contractor needs to complete a job. That goes from equipment mounting, condensate, management, tools, maintenance chemicals, electrical components, indoor air quality, and much more. They have different branches under the same umbrella. More than likely, you're already using some of their products or tools. So go check out diversitech.com, and it's your one-stop shop for everything HVAC.
Yeah, so I'll go back to when I was working on chillers, when we were designing these units, and I mentioned the high discharge temperatures, right? And that can be a safety issue in residential, light commercial units. When you start talking about the limits of your copper tubing, and really when you start getting the larger stuff like in chillers, you got inch and 5/8 inch, maybe a two and an eighth inch discharge line, or that's heavy, it's large, and as you get the larger copper, and the heat and pressure increase, that limit that pressure limit for that copper is decreases, the heat goes up, so you end up and I think UL, if you look at like UL 60335-2-40, there are maybe 6 times burst pressure. Don't hold me to that, but there are standards to what you need to design to. But some of like the standard, I want to say L type copper that we use, that most people use, does not withhold the pressure and temperature of R32 at certain diameters.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so it can be a safety hazard there. And that's where the OEMs need to design to that. And then also, we talked about like the differences. So if you're saying, oh, they're both A2Ls, I'm going to replace, I'm going to throw some R454, R32
That's what
system.
I've heard. Yes.
Yeah, they are not. So in all reality, R32 is part of the R454 mix. All right, that is part of it. I think there's R32 and R410A as well, a smaller
Yes.
fraction of it, right? But R32 is a pure refrigerant. So if you start adding other, refrigerant to an R32 system, you're not, it's not the same, and you're not gonna. I'm not, I don't have a chemistry degree in my back
No,
pocket. I
but
can't,
but
I
I'm
can't
just
say
but I'm just
what it
saying
does, but
but I'm just saying
yeah,
in general, you cannot like even
yeah.
remove the refrigerant
Mhm.
and use the other in its place
Mhm.
because
Right. Yeah.
of the different capacity and like you said, the
Yeah.
discharge temperature. And I think even the
Yeah.
oil is different. So
Yeah.
there's a few
That's a good
differences.
point. Yeah. The oil. I know. I want to say. I know the our multi refrigerant compressor, R454B compressor uses the same oil. It's a POE, a polyolefin.
Hmm.
R32, I think you're right, is a different viscosity. I could pull
Slight,
up. We've got some specs for them, but I know we recommend
yeah.
different oils, different in
I was
those
gonna say
compressors.
it's a slight difference, but it is a difference.
So what it does, it's helpful for I think the customer in that first off, part numbers don't need to change. I know that can be a pain, but we're allowed to the OEM's allowed to use this compressor. It's qualified with 454B. They're allowed to use this compressor with their new products, right? So as of January 1st, 2025, they have to start building A2L units, right? Packaged and split from residential
Yeah.
all the way up to commercial chillers. Um, so they can use this compressor for new products, but they can also use this compressor for retrofitting, um, products in the field. So if there's you have a R410A compressor go down in the field, they can use this back stock. They might have some of these compressors that they bought from us already. They can use these to repair and run 410A
Oh, okay.
systems in the field. So really, we're helping them transition, by keeping these part numbers the same, and it just reduces complexity on their end. It doesn't hurt it, it's not hurting us at all. It's just a ULC certification. Go in and say, hey, we tested it. We proved that we can, these compressors meet the standards, and that's it. So there's not a whole lot different. I do think maybe I'd have to take a look, but I think there might be one discharge valve. They changed one valve in the compressor material, the
Yeah.
valve.
Oh,
There was
yeah,
some
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of synthetic material that they had to change. But overall, it's not, it's nothing.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
when I had seen somebody, again, educators, taking a look at the internals of the compressor, I think that was one of the
Yeah.
changes that had to
Mhm.
be made because some material wasn't able to be used on the newer ones. But
Yeah, maybe with the
I'm
new oil or the new refrigerant, it breaks down more, so
yeah,
they had to
yeah,
change
something about
something over. Yeah.
yeah, something about that.
We're talking about our 454B specifically. And, we also mentioned R32, so we have a separate line of R32 compressors. So I'll just mention for our medium and large scrolls, it's a separate part, right? So it's our DSF compressors, whereas the R410A, R454B compressors are DSH. So those are separate. And again, we talked about the different discharge temperatures, different capacity ratings. So that's why those compressors are different for R32. And we do have some large customers that are strictly R32 right now, so that's why that exists.
Do you guys also have like valves or
Mhm.
TXVs that are going to be multi refrigerant as well?
Yeah, so from what I understand, so like let's say our TXVs, we've got a couple different lines of TXVs. We're phasing out our legacy TXVs for the new TXVs. With that being said, some of the new ones are capable of working in an R410A system. So if they're 454B TXVs, or I mean, really, R32, you can use them as well. They're just going to have different capacity ratings. So with the same valve, you're going to get more capacity with a R32 system, right, than R454B. I don't know the number. Maybe somewhere between 3 and 7% or something like that. But they are qualified for all A2Ls, and they are still usable in R410A systems. And again, we're phasing out our R410A legacy stuff. Again, for simplicity and in the fact that with these TXVs, a lot of times these bulb charges, which they haven't EPA and no, and really the government haven't pushed this on anyone yet. From what I understand, is the bulb charge in your TXV. Um, we've moved to A2L bulb charges as well. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Interesting
Again,
little.
I don't think that's been pushed down yet, but that's it's coming. So we assume it's coming.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, it's good to know because some people are having to look for TXVs to do these retrofits, and it's always like, which one do you get? And
Yeah, yeah.
even like what I was gonna mention earlier was, I do commercial refrigeration where it's like I already have enough refrigerants to carry around because we
Mhm.
still deal with the
Yeah, you
older
guys are
stuff.
good, right? For a year, I think, right?
I,
You can
at
still.
this point, yeah, at this point, I can't even carry them all in my van. I just now I have to leave them in the shop because I had like racks set up where it
Yeah.
was like, okay, I got a good 3 or 4 tanks in there, and now I need like six. I'm not carrying all those. So,
Mhm.
and it was a little bit easier before to be able to tell what a system was because like R22 was mineral oil and
Yeah.
all we did was change to 410 POE oil, but now I had came across
Mhm.
an equipment and everything's universal, going universal. It's just, what TXV are they using or compressor, but the side of the thing had like, oh, it's good for like 10 different refrigerants for a walk-in box. And I was like, this installer, whoever installed it, didn't mark what it was. So I had to guess. I was like, if I'm gonna add anything, I'm gonna have to take out all the charge and put in whatever we're using. So it's just a big,
Yeah, that
deal
sounds like
this
a
year.
mess. Yeah. Mm-mm.
uh,
Yeah. Again, I haven't even. I'll be honest, Adrian. I haven't even considered some of the situations you guys probably get into when, like you just mentioned. I mean, that's probably a pain.
yeah, that one, some other company installed it. So I'm like, I don't even know what they used because even if you narrow it down for like a freezer or cooler, like there's still
Yeah.
3 different ones they could have gone with. So
Wow. Wow. So I will ask. So for refrigeration, I don't think that the refrigeration hasn't been forced into A2L yet, right? That's January 2026, I think. Is that right?
I think that sounds familiar. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm still even seeing or using and seeing 404A,
Mm,
and
okay.
we have
Mm,
equipment now that's 448. So I mean, there hasn't been too much,
mm,
not as much
okay.
as on the HVAC
Mm,
side.
mm. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So we've got, and I will mention, I work mostly rooftops on that side. We do have a commercial refrigeration division as well.
Hmm.
That's specifically, so there are people like me that application engineers that work specifically in refrigeration. So I know that I might not, what you're describing, I'm vaguely familiar with, but
It's
it's
all the
there's a
same,
yeah, oh yeah, it really comes down to it, right? It's the
just a
vapor
little
compression cycle, and
technicalities.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
Um, so all the changes that we're seeing,
Mm,
as far as like you guys, do you guys also deal with the
mm.
any sensors, any kind of components for
Oh
that
yeah,
aspect of it?
yeah. So that's one of our well performed. And that's something that we offer. Many OEMs are buying from us right now. Our A2L sensors. So like you mentioned, along with the change, this semi-flammable refrigerant poses uh, risks, right?
Should we be worried as far as like our like safety and precautions for A2Ls?
I mean, I don't know if I'm the one to tell you yes or no, but from I mean, we've all read, slightly flammable and it has low flame propagation. So compared to like A1s, right? Or I'm sorry, A3s.
Yeah.
So it's not as flammable as, propane or
So I
something.
guess that would be like another misconception because for a good while people thought this
uh,
was propane, and I'm like,
no,
it's
no.
not, right? It's very
Yeah.
hard. It won't stay lit. It won't like it's not gonna just start a fire randomly. Not
Right. So
not not easily, at least.
the best way it's been explained to me is the risk is posed to maybe first responders or firefighters, right? So if you have a building on fire and you've got an
Yes.
R410A system, that system sealed, that pressure rises. I mean, we've already got a pressure bomb, and now you've got a semi-flammable pressure bomb in a high, in an area that could potentially have flames and heat. So that's where that risk is, I think, posed, and that's why there's you know, or maybe leaks. So I think about like a large chiller, right, with a couple hundred
Oh
pounds
yeah.
of an A2L refrigerant. Even though it might be outdoors, you get a leak into a control box or something. It probably unheard of, right? But it happens. You end up with like a cracked scroll compressor. You have a small leak that travels through your watertight conduit. And really, when I first saw this, heard of this, I was like, yeah, right, that would never happen. But there are cases, and then it leaks into a control box, and it leaks for how long until you get a low pressure trip, which could be you might have
Oh yeah.
60 pounds, it could be a ton of refrigerant, and then and then if that somehow ignites, that could be danger. But I think the big takeaway, hey, it's not propane, but there are standards and there are regulations that we need to abide by, and really that if anything, it's good practice before we start using A3s at some point, right?
Uh, we're gonna get to something else eventually, right? So
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
just another phase before the next phase, basically. So, um,
Unfortunately, well, I mean, I guess fortunately, unfortunately, it depends how you look at it. For the industry, it's like, wow, we just made a change, and we're already talking about another change, right? Um,
mhm.
it's wild, but yeah, you're right.
So you're just at this point, it's just precautions. So you guys
Hmm.
are
Yeah.
dealing with the
Mm.
sensors and that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, so we've got oh wow, we've got a lot of different options for sensors. Different OEMs use, they have different size OEMs, different size units. You might need one, you might need three per unit, depending on what you're doing. You might need more. I mean, um, also depends on how they communicate. We've got Modbus capable sensors. We've got basic relay sensors that might just trip a compressor. We've got I go back to paired with a board, like a mitigation board, but we also have full mitigation sensors as well. So like if you're using a mitigation board along with the sensor, well, we've got solutions. You can cut that board out, right? So our
Hmm.
our sensor itself, you can program to once you get a reading, it trips to cut off your compressors. That's one piece of it. And then if you start talking about like VRF systems, which I think that's not until 2026 either, the A2L changeover, but we've got solutions now to where we can shut down just portions of a VRF system, right? So if you think about like a large VRF system with many different heads coming off of your condensing unit, you have a leak in one. Well, why should I shut the entire system down if I can detect it, isolate it, right? So we use our sensors in conjunction with solenoid valves and check valves to do that. And that's something that is going to be important as we move to especially as VRF systems move to A2Ls.
Yeah, I was explained
Mm-hmm.
briefly for equipment that I work on, so like walk-in equipment on the mitigation boards and the sensors
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. So I mean,
Mhm.
you can look at it one of two ways, right? It's something else that we have to incorporate, but it's also, just learning how it works and being able to service if anything, if it trips or anything happens with it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's why, there's there's different types of communicating sensors. And I'm sure we'll evolve and, as the market demands, we will evolve and create different options for different solutions. But that's really, I think it goes back to the beginning when you started talking about the different types of refrigerants. It's really market demand. I mean, for us, right, as Danfoss, we look and say, hey, what's everyone doing, or what will they be doing, right? So a lot of my job is to not only to bring the cell components and integrate components into systems, but also understand like where are we going next, whether that be just you know uh, whether it be trade groups or I talk to engineers, advanced engineering at different OEMs. I need to also understand like what's next, so I can relay that to our product lines and our R&D engineers. So we have products that customers want in the future.
I also want to thank our new sponsors, CallRail. So I've been more into marketing and just online presence with our business, even though we only do commercial. Word of mouth is really good for any business. But once you get to a place where you want to be, a big name online or just anywhere, be recognizable, like I said, online presence, have a nice website, be able to be searchable in Google and all these different search engines, and just have a big presence. You need to know where to spend your money. And all I'm going to say is that CallRail can help you track that if that's something that you're interested in. CallRail can tell you, hey, these are not working so much. These are working really good. Stop spending your money here. Put more money and effort into this. and just be smarter about what you spend. So make sure you go by callrail.com. They do have a no risk free trial and you can check it out for yourself. I also want to thank another new sponsor, Residio. Basically, they help with a sustainable home and they make it a safer, cleaner, and smarter home. They have so many things that work together. They were showing me the new thermostats that they have going on, how it's implemented together, and all these different little, smart devices that connect and talk to each other. So if you want to learn more, head over to residio.com and check it out for yourself. Do you think
Beautiful.
we'll shift to more natural refrigerants at some point?
I mean, I'd say that's the progression. It'll happen at some point, right? With its challenges. I'm sure. I don't know if you've seen. I mean, I know Europe, EMEA, and like Europe's been working hard. They've been developing propane systems. Um, we've got some regulations already. I think they've even upped the limits for A3 refrigerants from
I,
maybe 200 to 500 grams now. So you're looking at
yeah,
maybe a pound per system, which it's not a lot, small, but that
but it's kind of
we're
crazy
moving.
because I work on I just started working on like some R290 refrigeration equipment, and that stuff takes like the smallest amount, right? So I still see. I know they go by grams, but like it still shows me the ounces, and it's like zero point
Yeah.
0.9 ounces or
Oh
something
wow.
crazy. And like
Yeah.
for like a under counter freezer, I think I was working on a freezer, and I've seen several of these now, and I'm like, that there's
Uh,
no way, right? And I weigh it
yeah.
in, and it works incredible. Like it drops temp super quick, and it
So
works. It works great.
so that's a good that's a good part of right. So it's a low density. You're going to use
Yeah,
less
that was
refrigerant. That's excellent, right?
that was my
That
that was gonna
helps
be my
us.
point. That
Yeah.
it like everybody's like, oh, we need because everybody's waiting on them to raise the limit, and it's gonna be a slow process no matter what.
Yeah.
These are all phases. These are all like we went through it with R22. We went through it now, and we're gonna go through it again at some point.
Yeah.
And these natural refrigerants are we're just waiting on them to up the amount that we're allowed to use and all that. But I'm like, or some people are like, are we gonna have pounds and pounds of this stuff, in our systems? And honestly, you probably don't need
All
much
right.
of
Yeah. I
it
mean,
compared to older systems.
yeah. I mean, if you look at just a comparison, like our 454B is a high density refrigerant, right? Um, so yeah, if we're using something that's much more low density, then yeah, we're not going to use the same weight of
Is there a
refrigerant.
is there a percentage of it that because like when I did a conversion when we first like phased out R22 and we had to do like 407C or any of those that were recommended by the manufacturer when we did a retrofit, like a new compressor went in and we had to
Hmm.
use like 407C. I remember specifically because the density changes, refrigerant to refrigerant. Because that retrofit, when I did it, it specifically said your charge is probably going to be like 80% of what the original charge was when you
Yeah.
use 407C compared to R22. So like all of
Right.
that changes, and I mean that's why it's important to really know how to charge a system front to back, not only by weight but by other
Yeah.
methods, right? Like superheat, subcool, whatever the manufacturer wants.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I
That's,
just
that's a great
I
point.
that just I remember that one because I was like, oh, if I hadn't read that and I weighed it in, I would have overcharged that system.
Yeah, that's a great point too, Adrian. 'Cause I mean that as we've from what I've noticed, as we've changed, refrigerants have changed, technology's changed, component systems have gotten much more complex. I think manufacturers have also changed a lot of their uh,
and
the way that technicians deal with them, right? So I mean,
and
just
micro
like
channels that
yes,
that
oh
all
yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff.
So I'm just anecdotally speaking, right? I've got a system in my house. I've got a heat pump system in my house. When a technician comes out, it's under warranty. I've had someone out here a few times because it's broken, and under warranty, he's come out and he's told me straight up like does not service these new units the same way he does old. He gets on the phone with
Oh
the
yeah.
technical technical support. They pull up a manual, they go through it, and they go through the troubleshooting procedures. They tap into his computer. I mean, it's so much different than what it
Oh,
used to
I'm
be,
not
right?
there yet. I'm not there
Yeah,
yet
it's
because
so much different.
I see,
Mm,
like, for me it's it was always mechanical, right? Like I
yeah,
got so used to that, and you throw in a coil, throw in a solenoid, whatever. Now it's
yeah.
like electronic
Mm.
expansion valves are a thing, right? Like, and
Yes,
that is your
yes.
pump down valve as
Mm,
well in most cases. Like that valve does everything, which is cool because now you got
yep,
one less component to deal with in the system, but you got to learn how that works. You got to learn the boards,
yep.
you got to learn everything
You
else.
start throwing
And
an economizer or like
yeah,
vapor injection compressors with economizers. I
I
mean, it gets very, it can get very complex on
I
small
I
residential systems, you know?
like I barely learned about liquid injection on like on freezers a
Yeah.
couple years ago because I had never seen it before. I'm like, all right, got to learn something else. But
Mm,
equipment changes, like you said, over time.
yeah.
They find better ways to do things. They find different ways to do things. And yeah, I'm not there yet, but I did come across a unit
Mm,
with the most complicated electrical boards and everything. And I'm like, all right, for this one, we gotta call tech support because there's no way I'm
mm,
gonna get through this. And I'm just imagining because at some point we are gonna need, and it happens with all equipment because my dad does like cooking equipment, right? So he does like
okay. Yeah.
fryers and ovens and all that. Those have computers in them now too, where he's having to know how to program them for a fryer that just makes fries and like fried chicken. Like he does all that
Yeah, and
now.
it's been like, wow, it's a big shift, right? Over, nothing's immune to that technology. Nothing's immune. Like we're always changing, and I think that's a great way to look at, back what we're talking about, like refrigerants. Like it's always changing along with everything else in the industry. So, I know some people are probably mad about it. Some people are probably, oh, it's something we got to deal with. It's complexity. It's a pain, but we're going to see. It's I mean, it keeps us busy, right? I mean, it keeps the industry.
Oh
We're
yeah.
doing something, and I think it's for a good cause, right? I mean, the main push is environmental protection. So, um, I like that. I don't know, it's sometimes it's hard to look at something so large
I
and say,
yes.
okay, how does this, how does this,
I like it
like,
too, but I feel like we get all the blame sometimes.
yeah, yeah, and then you're
But
also doing you're also dealing with the you know the challenges in the field, right? Maybe it doesn't seem like it's always worth it, but
no,
I
and
think it's coming
as
from a good place,
yes, and as far as like challenges in the field, you got to explain to your customer too, like what's going on because they educate them on what's going on with their system, the transition. Like it's always about talking to your customer, being open about it, and also
yeah,
just being a good technician because um, I heard somebody say recently like this is where like one way to avoid all this is just be good at fixing things because yeah, right, like the real technicians are thriving right now. um being able to fix things is like if you can't get, I mean this is a whole other thing, but if you can't get that refrigerant right now, fix their system and then get them ready for the transition at some point. So there's
yeah.
different ways to look at it.
Yeah, so you just brought that up. So what have you heard? I mean, talking about refrigerant shortages, I've heard a few things. I've seen a few things on the internet. Some
It's
people complaining
wild.
about. Yeah, so is that
So as
so? I
far
don't
as
I don't I don't see it as much like where I'm at, right? So I know like
yeah.
and I can only assume that the OEMs have what they need, right? I mean, I
Oh
can only
yeah.
assume they've stockpiled what they need because they knew that this was going to be a big, but
So
for you
it
guys, for people on the front lines, are you not getting A2L refrigerants or what?
so it like I have another podcast where we do like it's like a group conversation. So the other guys that I talk to do residential. So I've heard feedback
Mhm,
on it affects them more than it affects me because I deal with
mhm.
commercial.
Yeah,
They keep the equipment a little bit longer. We fix things a little bit more.
right,
But they're
right.
changing out equipment and at least where they're at, they can still get what they need. It's just coming at a higher cost. So Like
Okay.
454B is in some places almost $1,000 a tank, right? For the
Wow.
20-pound tank, whatever it is now. For
Wow.
me, my supply house doesn't even offer it anymore, but I can get R32. Now
Mhm.
R32 went from $200 to $500 in the past week.
For a 20
So
pound cylinder.
20 pound. So this is the only complaint that I have is that
Mm,
this affects a lot of small
mm, mm.
businesses, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I was talking to one of the guys specifically. Like
Mm,
he was saying that a lot of the big companies in his area
mm,
were buying up as much as they could
mm.
ahead of time, and they're stocked, they're fine.
Oh,
But all
yeah.
the small businesses, because I'm not going to carry,
Mm.
a pallet or two pallets of refrigerant,
No.
right? So that's where that comes in. But you gotta find other ways. You gotta work around things, and at this
Yeah.
point, just get through the transition. It'll come back down at some point,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's
I mean, that's what I would hope that's what this is, like that just pain in transition because, you know,
it's just a different kind of transition because before it wasn't, you know all this equipment is coming out now, and you can get the refrigerant, but they are, I mean, manufacturers are helping. There's companies like yourself on the component side trying to, you know simplify the components. But
yeah.
I've recently heard that other, like, the manufacturers of these AC equipment are offering, I think, at no charge now, because I think one of them was charging for, like, if you needed extra line set charge. So now they're offering you, if you need an extra 50 feet, whatever, they'll put the extra charge in there.
Nice.
Uh, I'm pretty sure that there's not really a surcharge for it, from what I was told, because one company did try to charge for it, and then, like, they rescinded that, and after all
Oh,
the other
yeah.
ones weren't charging. So
Mm.
we got to work together. There's different ways around it, and hopefully, like I said, it's just a phase. We'll get through it.
That's how I see it, and I hope that's true, Adrian. I hope that's just we'll work through it, and maybe next year, the year after, this will all be we'll be back to smooth sailing as far as hiccups like this with refrigerant shortages, and and like you said, walking into seeing a unit, don't even know what kind of refrigerants in it. That's crazy, right?
Well, that was, yeah, my whole point earlier was, somebody mentioned that you have to be a better technician this year. Like, you just
You know,
overall, right? Uh, Repairing things, getting the customer going with any, and dealing with shortages, stuff like that. Um, but also new equipment, when you put it in, like, label the equipment,
yeah,
do little things here and there so that it
yep.
makes it easier overall. So there's
Yeah,
different
yeah.
ways.
Maybe not for you. Might not be the next guy, right? Like the next guy coming in, it might not be you. But you need to think about the customer, think about everyone else in the trade. I mean, attention to detail, right? I mean, I was I was in the Marine Corps for almost 12 years, and I feel like attention to detail was driven into us every day. But it's true, and that you know, across any industry, attention to detail. You need to think about what's coming next. Or
That's
you
the
might be the
only
guy. You,
way.
you might you might come back to it 5 years from now, right? And
Oh
that
yeah,
same customer, and then you're like, oh, I didn't label it, or I didn't do this. Damn, I made my life harder, right? So,
exactly. So what? Okay, let me just kind of circle back to you before we get off this. Um, Marine Corps. So, like, how long were you doing that for?
yeah, so I was in for almost 12 years, like 11 and a half years. Yeah, I got out in 2015. When I got out, I went to school, studied mechanical engineering, and I found my way into the HVAC industry. So,
That's what I wanted to do, was mechanical engineering, and then I got
okay,
out of
yeah.
it.
Mm. Yeah, I felt really fortunate. I went back to school when I was like 30. I
Oh,
felt really
okay.
fortunate. Felt really fortunate to do that, and not. I feel like, yeah, I just kind of took the chance, and but I'm glad I found this industry, man, because people laugh. And before I left the Marine Corps, I worked on um, helicopters, well, really tilt rotor aircraft, the V-22. I was a mechanic, and people were like, "Oh, that sounds so much more exciting than HVAC." And I'm like, "Well, I actually like the HVAC industry a little bit better." Maybe it was just the Marine Corps in general that took all the fun out of that. But I think I really do like this industry. I'm glad I found my way to it, and I'm
You know
glad
what's weird?
we've got people like you that can this is good. I enjoy this.
I appreciate it. I just want to get, the information out there. But
Yeah.
you know what's weird? I've had like 3 people on here now that have gone from working on aircrafts in some sort of way to HVAC.
That's excellent. That's I feel like it's a good transition. I mean, on working on helicopters, aircraft, it's I mean, what's the difference, right? You're still troubleshooting, you're still
Yeah, I was gonna
diagnosing
say
systems,
troubleshooting,
and yeah,
problem solving.
yes, problem solving, exactly, man. And you're dealing with, just like in the Navy or the Marine Corps, the Air Force, you're dealing with the standards and the set forth for the aircraft maintenance. And here we're dealing with our standards and our agency certifications, and it's just a different product. And I think both just as important, right? I mean, think about the systems that we work on every day. It sounds like you work on very important systems that keep our food fresh. We've got, I've seen process cooling, comfort cooling, it's just everything matters. So, yeah, like I said, I like this industry. I think it was a natural transition for me. So,
That's awesome. So how did you but then how did you get into HVAC? Like what drew you in, or what got you, what, like,
oh man,
who
that was
hooked
by
you in?
chance. That was by chance, sir. That so. Engineering was one thing, I met some engineers in a hangar one time, and I was like, "Oh, that job looks cool." And they were like, "Dude, go to school, study it." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do that." So I did. But when it came to HVAC, I always liked, like, going through school. I always liked the HVAC. I thought it was interesting. And then I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was looking for work right around the time of the pandemic, right? So it was a pretty wild time to be
I feel
looking
like
for
that's
work.
everybody's turning point when I do these podcasts.
It was a wild time, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I was going to take whatever I could get, but luckily I did come across a, a job in HVAC, and when I met the hiring manager and I met the team, it felt like a perfect fit. And when I went into it, like I'd mentioned earlier, they were redesigning their legacy product for A2L, so it was a perfect time to get in.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it at the time, but now looking back, I'm like, wow, that's some invaluable experience working on that project. So again, I think a lot of it was timing. I could have
Yeah.
ended up in a different industry, but I don't think I would be as happy as I am now. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I say the same thing. Like, and
yeah,
everybody that I've talked to, like it norm usually it is like accidental, or by chance they try it, and they end up liking it. So I mean,
yeah,
myself included, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mentioned I would I so I've always been into taking things apart, putting them back together, figuring out how they worked. Um, I know I've talked to somebody, like, I used to watch a show, and I think I still catch it on YouTube sometimes. Something like How It's Made, I think was the name of the show or
oh yeah,
something.
yeah. I
And
think
I
that's on
just
TV too, right? I think.
I think so. I think I seen it
Yeah.
recently too. Like, I was just fascinated with like machinery and like how things are made in warehouses, and
Yep.
my own free time taking apart things, fixing things, like, as a kid. And I actually I used to fix smartphones and tablets as like a side gig for a while.
Oh,
And
nice.
that made me a lot of money because everybody
I was gonna
breaks
say
their phones.
that's always gonna be in demand, right?
Yeah.
That's like,
So I've always, been into that. And then I went for mechanical engineering because I'm like, oh, I guess this is it, like the natural, path to take.
mm,
But then I used to play sports. I got injured. I had to take time off from school. And
yeah,
my dad was like, hey, I need some help. I need
nice.
logos. I need design stuff because I was good with computers. So it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, I'll get into it. I'll dive into it. And then I started working with him on the weekends, and I was like, I kind of like this. So
man.
just
I mean,
happened to get into it myself.
So you said mechanical engineering. It seemed like the natural path. I mean, it's a path, right? Like
Oh yeah.
it's a path, and there's other paths, and I think that's awesome to hear that. That especially like, and you said you're a business owner. It's like, and uh, I think that everyone at some point in their life is like, man, I wish I had my own company or ran my own company.
Until you
Um,
do.
yeah, yeah, I know. And again, I'm sure it's got its ups and downs, but there's so many paths. And for anybody listening, it's like, and I know, um, I think so. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you've got so this is reliable HVACR, but the reliable trades is your main podcast or other. How does this? What's the hierarchy here with the
So the
podcast?
so reliable HVACR is just where I show my work. That's
Okay,
just
all
like
right,
when I'm working on things, showing that kind of stuff. And this podcast that you're on right now is a reliable trades
right.
podcast where I'm just
Okay,
trying
okay.
to bring awareness to like all trades, and
Okay.
any kind of work, manufacturer side in the field, any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's excellent, man. And I'll say, going through engineering school was like, for me, I've been through a lot of different schools. I was military. It was literally like a uh, um, 5 years of job training. So
Yeah.
for anybody that's like looking out there and say, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know if I want to be an engineer. I don't know. I know we're not like I'm not in maybe not considered a trade, but it is not a it's not a I would say one of those degrees where you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's job training. You're going to get 4 or 5 years of
Mm.
job training. So it is. I think and I mean, look at us. We with HVAC. I mean, you've got it's important, to have engineers. It's important to have technicians. It's important to have, everybody across. I've got
Oh yeah.
guys at OEMs that have PhDs and they have their place. Trust me, like stuff that I could never even think about, nor would I want to do. Right. So
Yeah.
it's definitely we all work together. So again,
Somebody
it's great to see stuff like your podcast. So thanks.
Yeah, somebody has to do that. I mean, somebody like we work
Yeah.
on it in the field, but somebody has to design it, figure out all the logistics of it, manufacturing, engineering, designing. Because when I started, I didn't want to do anything but fix it. I didn't like,
Yeah.
like the installs, the designing, the building science. Like I never took that into consideration. I had to learn that later, but
Yeah. Good point.
I
Yeah.
mean, you work, and like I said, I think I mentioned it earlier. I didn't like to call tech support myself, but you learn to work together because like it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
just one or the other. There's several moving parts in getting. I mean,
Yeah.
HVAC in itself, I always tell people is everywhere. It's a good trade to be in. You walk
Yeah. Oh
into
yeah.
anybody's
Man.
house, fridge, HVAC system. You go into any building anywhere, right? It's everywhere. That's my point, and it's a good
Yep.
trade, in my
All
opinion.
around the world, right?
One of the best trades, I think.
Yeah, all around the world, it's in demand. I mean, I remember walking through the chiller plant at the end of the month and seeing they'd slap labels on where these units were going. I mean, they were going everywhere, right? Like Middle East,
Oh yeah, I've heard
Africa,
of
like all
stories
over the country. Yeah, it's
of
like,
guys
wow.
that
And
fly out over there, because they need people that work on this stuff, you know,
mhm.
uh, and they go out there and they do HVAC, but they're from here, but they do HVAC in other countries.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, and I'm sure it's very quite the lucrative job
Oh yeah, I
sending
was
you
like,
overseas.
I could never do it, but I mean, I'm sure money talks,
Yeah,
right?
and some people love travel, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool. Something we were talking earlier, I wanted to ask you from your standpoint, or let's say like some of the people that are on your podcast, technician wise, where are they getting? Where's like are they learning most about A2Ls? Do you know? Has anybody talked about that to you?
I want to say podcasting is high up there. A lot of people love to
Nice.
listen on
Mhm.
their drive, or if they're doing something that's like not complicated, like maintenance, they'll have a. I've been told a lot they'll have an earbud in to listen to something. Because
Wow.
there's a lot of good educational ones, and I think Danfoss has their own as well. And uh, social media has been a big one too. I personally have
Yeah.
short attention span, I'll admit. So a podcast here and there in pieces, and then social media, if you can take a bite size content, like this
Yeah.
is what A2Ls is, this is what, misconceptions, different things. I think social media has been a big deal right now.
Wow, that's interesting, and I mean, that's great. I mean, I feel like
There,
so everyone uses social media, right?
yeah, I
So
was
it's
like, there
good that
is.
people are using it to learn. I mean, it's
Yeah, and I used to do, I mean, I do them every now and then. Like, if there's
mm,
in-person training, that's what I love to do. So I've
yeah,
done that a lot when there's some here or at the supply house.
mm,
Those are always cool because you can go and ask questions or see the actual stuff that they're working on and, touch it, feel it. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think everybody's,
I think I asked because like I don't know. It's generational, right? Like
oh
I'm
yeah,
40, so like I'm not maybe not using social media to learn as much or really using social media as much as many people, but I feel like people a lot younger than myself. Maybe are right, and the
that's a good
fact that
point.
there are resources to learn on social media, I think is excellent, and I think that's a great point because I'm like you, I like the in person, I like to
Yeah.
go, whether it be a podcast, whether sometimes I jump on a one of the OEMs will throw out some training, virtual
Yes.
training, I'll jump on that for an hour, or I'll supply house. I mean, I'll visit, I try to get around and meet people too,
Yeah.
so
And
that's
I'm,
the kind of stuff I like, but that's
yeah,
just
yeah,
me.
yeah.
I
And
mean,
I'm the
there's other
same
people
way.
that you know.
And I'm the same way, but
Yeah.
I've noticed, and I've been trying to use social media more, even like stuff that I watch, trying to learn as much as I can. But it's funny because I've had a lot of kids that are like 19 or a year in, 2 years in on this podcast.
Yeah.
And the first thing they do is open up YouTube to look for something that they don't know.
Mm, nice.
Or, well, I think YouTube's the main
Reddit?
one. I've heard
I think,
Reddit.
yeah, check out the HVAC sub on Reddit. It's a lot of technicians, a lot of people in the industry. Sometimes it's just some nonsense, but a lot of times people
Yeah.
have post some good questions, and that was where. So funny. If you got a minute, I'll tell you the story
Yeah.
real quick. I talked about refrigerant migrating through from a compressor shell through a conduit into a control box. So that the first time I was ever posed with this issue was during like a design FMEA, where we were all just kind of spitballing what could while we were designing a system, what are the fault modes, what could happen, and someone with a little more experience than me brought that up, and I was like, really, like, would that really happen? And they were like, yes, it could. And I was like, I didn't believe it at all, man. I was like, no way. So a few weeks later, I was scrolling through Reddit, like the HVAC sub on there, and someone posted a picture of a chiller of the same manufacturer I used to work for, and they basically spelled that whole situation, that same
Mm.
scenario out, and they with pictures and everything. I was like, no way. They're like, no way is it like that like common, right? But it happens, right? So sometimes things that you don't think might happen. I mean, with refrigerant will migrate through a conduit, into a control box, like
Oh, yeah.
14 feet of conduit. It's like no way, but it happens, and I think using I like social media for that aspect because you see other people's experiences, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm not going to see it all. You're not going to see it all. But if we're sharing our experiences and what we're seeing, we're going to see that and say, oh, wow, I have seen that. Maybe not firsthand, but I've
Yeah.
seen it. Someone's explained it. I understand it better now, right? And I like that aspect of social
That
media.
that reminds me of one. Again, I didn't experience it, but I've
Mhm.
a lot of it is and that's what I like is when people share, their experience or the issues that they see because you don't come across that until one day that you do, right? Like you're like, "Oh, I saw that
Yeah.
somewhere," right? So that reminds me of one where they and a couple of people have posted it now. I've seen it more than once on like an RTU, and they have these like pressure switches, right? And it's like the two little wires coming out of it, the little peanut ones. I forgot what they're called. The ones that are inline in the copper. It's a little stem, and then it's the
Yeah.
pressure switch and two wires coming out. Those
Yep.
actually leak also refrigerant through the wiring.
Oh man, that's an excellent, yeah, right in line with what I was talking about,
Yeah,
right?
That's what it
So your
reminded me
pressure
of.
switch, pressure switches have to be piped directly into the refrigerant system without a Schrader valve, right? So there's no
Yes.
valve in between a pressure switch and the refrigerant. And then if you have an internal, if that internal switch itself is compromised, yeah, refrigerant will leak through the housing into the wires. That's a
So
great point.
never happened to me, but like now when I do
Yeah.
my leak checks, I check that spot too now because I've seen several people with
Nice.
that issue, and I'm like, okay, see that and that's the good thing about social media. Obviously, there's the bad, but there's the good, and the
Yeah.
good is like seeing things like that that you can learn from and kind of integrate into your day to
Yeah.
day. Like it's never happened to me, but I know it can happen, so I'm gonna check that.
There can be misinformation. There can be uh, and it carries on for decades if people don't
Oh
educate
yeah,
themselves, right?
oh yeah,
I mean, if you don't educate yourself to what's changing, just like these A2Ls, you could be passing misinformation unknowingly. I'm not saying these people do it maliciously, but you have to keep learning, and that's really what that you know.
yeah. You get technicians. I've been doing it this way for 20, 30 years, and it's like, well, things have changed, right? And they're trying to
Yeah,
pass down misinformation from 20,
it's a
30
dangerous
years ago.
statement. When people say this is how we've always done it, that's a dangerous statement, right? We used to say in
Yep.
aviation, that's what crashes airplanes. When
There
people
you
say, "Oh,
go.
this is how we've always done it," well, it's not safe. So I think at closing, your closing, I mean, just in general, right? Like, keep learning. Just
Oh yeah.
watch podcasts. Yeah, however you want to ingest information, keep learning.
Yeah, it's a good point. I feel like that always stands out as if there's a technician that does good work, it's because they put in the work after work. They
Yeah,
listen to podcasts, watch videos, training, whatever it is, in their off time. And I've always seen that in the really good technicians or the ones that care. So it's always a
yeah,
good thing to do. Work
cool.
work after work. That's study after work. That's your thing.
Doesn't sound that great, does it?
No, but that's the only way you get better. And then like
Yeah,
I
I
just
know.
I just did a recording with somebody, and I was like, because they're still relatively new and they have a like a new baby and stuff. You hustle and kind of put in the work in the beginning, and you can
Yeah,
kind of reap the benefits later. Like
yeah,
it's easier for you. You're quicker. You're more efficient, and then you work your way up. That's the only way to do it.
yeah, yeah. No, that's definitely a good word of advice for people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, like I said, thank you again for being
yeah,
on the show. I think we had a really great conversation. So I'm excited to get this out.
yeah. Adrian, it's been excellent, man. I didn't really know what to expect. My manager Brian, he's done a few things like this before, and I think he was like, asking, "Hey, you guys want to do this?" And I'm glad I took the chance to
Yeah, I'm
do
glad
this.
I'm glad you made the time today. I know we had some scheduling conflicts, but we got it done.
It's all good. It was worth it.
So Danfoss doing good things over there. I appreciate everything that you guys do. Also, behind the scenes before it hits the technician, as far as like parts and all that other stuff. So I've worked on
Yeah.
plenty of stuff that has Danfoss in it, and it's good to see you with this transition, what you guys are doing. So awesome stuff.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I'm glad. I'm glad you've
Yeah,
familiar with and have seen our products. So, and hopefully you'll see more of them in the future, man. So,
for sure. Everybody watching and listening, I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.